Okay, we are holding on. He's,
okay? They call you? Ruben?
yeah, I spoke to him. He should be here today, but okay, we're on Daf Samech Tet. We're gonna do Samech Tet Amud Bet. We're all the way on the bottom of Samech Tet Amud Aleph by the Mishnah. There's a Mishnah all the way on the bottom. So we're talking about lady eating truma, either a bat kohen or a bat Yisrael who's married to kohen eating truma when she's pasul, when she's not. So says the Mishnah, ha'ones vamfateh vashoteh. So ones is somebody who is together with a woman by force. Mefateh is somebody who he convinces the woman to be with him, but they're kasher. You know, it's a kasher man and a kasher woman. Boker tov. Kasher man, kasher woman, they're together. Or shoteh, someone who doesn't have dat. Lo poslin velo ma'achilin. Boker tov. They're not posel, a lady from having truma, and they're not ma'achil. They don't feed a lady truma. So we're talking about a kosher man, a kosher Yisrael, who he's together with a bat kohen. He's not gonna be posel her. Or a kohen who he's together just has a bia with a bat Yisrael. He's not gonna feed her truma, right? Or a shoteh. You could have a kohen who's a shoteh, and he marries a bat Yisrael. He cannot feed her truma because his that wasn't a real full marriage. He doesn't have the ability to make a kinyan. But if they're not able, if they're pasul people, let's say the guy is a mamzer and he has bia with bat kohen, he's going to make her pasul now. She can't have truma anymore. So ketzad, so the Mishnah explains. Haya Yisrael Shabal Bat Kohen. Let's say you had a Yisrael who's together with a Bat Kohen. So this lady, she grew up in the house of a Kohen. She's eating truma in her house. She's a Bat Kohen. And a Yisrael is together with her. He sleeps with her. They have his nut together. So Tochal, he doesn't make her pasul from eating truma. She's able to continue eating truma. Tochal b'truma. Ibra, but if she became pregnant, so now she's pregnant potentially with a child of a Yisrael, Lo tochal b'truma, she's not allowed to eat truma. Nechtach ha'ubar, but if the child is lost, so then b'me'eha, inside of her, so tochal, then she could eat truma. Now let's say it was the other way around. Haya kohen sheba'al bat Yisrael. Let's say the case was you had a kohen who was together with a bat Yisrael. So this lady was a bat Yisrael, she's not eating truma, and a kohen is together with her, not through marriage, just they have bia. So as a znut, iser. So lo tochal b'truma, she cannot eat truma because she's still a bat Yisrael. She didn't get married to the kohen. Ibira lo tochal, if she became pregnant from that relationship, she cannot eat truma. Yalda tochal, but if she has a child from the kohen, even though she was not married to the kohen, she has a child from the kohen, so then she's allowed to eat truma.
Even ger or boy doesn't make a difference?
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. She's a bat Yisrael. She just had a child from a kohen, not through being married. That child feeds her truma. So nimtza kocho shel ben gadol mishel av. It comes out that the child is stronger than the father because a child that's born, even not through marriage, causes the mother to eat truma if the child is a kohen. Right? Having a son that's a kohen causes the mother to eat truma no matter what. But the father of the son only causes the mother to eat truma if he's married to her. If they just had a bia, she's not going to eat because of the father. Okay? Ha'eved posel mishum bia ve'eno posel mishum zera. So an eved, if he's together with a bat kohen, he'll be posel her because that there's an isur bia there. An eved is not allowed to be with a bat Yisrael. So that's an isur, and therefore he'll be posel her. But if a bat kohen or a bat Yisrael who's married to kohen, if a bat Yisrael who's married to kohen has lineage of an eved, it won't make her pasul. Or if a bat Yisrael,
What do you mean lineage of the
so we're gonna explain the case. We're talking about a bat Yisrael who was married to a kohen, so she's allowed to eat truma from the kohen.
Okay.
As long as she has living children from the kohen, even if the kohen dies, but she has a child or a grandchild from him, she's allowed to eat truma from him. So the Gemara is going to explain how that applies if she has a grandchild that's an eved. How's that possible? So the Gemara is going to explain. Let's listen to the case. Bat Yisrael leKohen or Bat Kohen leYisrael. Basically, you have two kosher people that are married. Right? We'll get into which one's a Kohen, which one's a Yisrael later in a minute. But you have two kosher people who are married. V'yalda imenu ben. And she has a child. They have a child together. V'alacha ben v'nechvash ala shivcha. And this child, he went and he had znut with a shivcha. V'yalda imenu ben. And that they have a child from the ben. So harei eved. Basically, you have two kosher people who got married, and they have a grandchild that's an eved. Yeah, they have a son that's kosher. The son went, he did something with a shivcha, he had an eved. So you have two kosher grandparents and a grandchild that's an eved. So haita ema viv bat Yisrael lekohen. Let's say the grandparents, there was a bat Yisrael to a kohen. Okay, so lo tochal b'truma. She is not allowed to eat truma if her husband dies and her son dies, and all she's left is this grandchild. The grandchild is an eved that's not considered miyuchas after her. It's not considered her lineage from the kohen, and therefore she cannot eat truma because of that grandchild. But bat kohen leYisrael, if it was a bat kohen who married a Yisrael and she has this grandchild that's an eved, so tochal b'truma, she can eat truma. We're talking about if her husband dies and she has her son dies, so she would go back. No, if she was a bat kohen who grew up eating, she grew up eating truma. Yeah. She got married to Yisrael. She has a grandchild now that's an eved. The grandchild that's an eved doesn't connect her to the Yisrael. That's the point. The grandchild that's an eved doesn't make it that she has a zera from the Yisrael and therefore she cannot eat truma. As long as her husband dies and the other son dies, this grandson doesn't make her not eat truma. So, so she's still allowed to eat truma. Tochal truma. Now mamzer. Let's say they have a lineage that's a mamzer. Posel u'machil. He could be posel and he'll be machil. Ketzad. Bat Yisrael lekohen ubat kohen leYisrael v'yalda imenu bat. So you have two parents, kosher, man and woman. They have a daughter. The bat went and she was together with somebody who she's not allowed to be together with. That would make the child a mamzer. V'yalda imenu ben. Harei mamzer. And they have a child. This is a mamzer. The Gemara is going to explain. This is going according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, that he holds that an eved and a bat Yisrael makes a mamzer. But either way, the case is very simple. You have grandparents, kosher. And they have a grandchild that's a mamzer. They have a daughter that's kasher. She married somebody she's not supposed to and had a child that's a mamzer. So haita emi mo bat Yisrael lekohen. Let's say the grandparents, the mother was a bat Yisrael who married a kohen. So she's eating because of her husband. Now, any lineage that she has from her husband, even if her husband dies, it doesn't matter. She's allowed to eat truma still because of that lineage. So, tochal b'truma, the mamzer will allow the mother to eat truma. An eved was different. The eved is not considered miyuchas after the family. A mamzer is still the descendant of the family. It's still considered miyuchas. He's a Jew 100%. He's just a mamzer. He has a psul to marry. So, she's allowed to eat truma. Bat kohen leYisrael lo tochal b'truma. If she's a bat kohen to Yisrael, she cannot eat truma. Okay, because the mamzer will be the descendant of the Yisrael, which would cause her not to eat truma. She has a descendant from Yisrael. Kohen gadol. So you can have a grandson that's a kohen gadol. Pamim shu posel, and he'll be posel the grandmother from eating truma. Yeah, very very interesting case. Ketzad, bat kohen leYisrael. So you have a bat kohen who married a Yisrael. So once they have a child, once she's married to the Yisrael, they cannot eat truma anymore. Okay? And as long as, even if the husband dies, as long as she has any zera from him, she cannot go back to her father's house and eat truma. She's a bat kohen.
Doesn't have a zera.
If she doesn't have a zera from him, then she goes back to her father's house and she could eat truma. She's a bat kohen. Okay? So bat kohen leYisrael. V'yalda himenu bat. And she has, they have a daughter together. V'halcha bat v'niset lekohen. Now this daughter goes and marries a kohen. V'yalda imenu ben, and they have a son. So hareze raui liot kohen gadol. That child, he could be a kohen gadol.
Yeah.
His mother was a bat Yisrael.
Bat Kohen.
No, the original grandmother was a bat Kohen who married a Yisrael.
Uh-huh.
They had a daughter. That daughter is a bat Yisrael.
Oh yeah, because of the father.
She marries a Kohen. Okay, that they have a child. That child could be Kohen Gadol. So Omed Umshamesh al Gabei HaMizbeach. He could be Kohen Gadol doing all the avodah. Ma'achilet imo. His mother eats truma because of him. But uposel em imo. The grandmother would be pasul because of him. If her husband dies and her daughter dies, she cannot go back to her father's house and eat truma because she still has zera from the Israel. Now happens to be the zera from the Israel is himself a Kohen Gadol, but nonetheless he's a descendant of the Israel from her, and therefore she's not allowed to eat truma. Zot omeret lo kibni Kohen Gadol shu pasalani min truma. Right? Not like my son Kohen Gadol, my grandson Kohen Gadol, who makes me pasul from teruma. Okay, so that was a loaded Mishnah. So let's see some of the Gemara. So Tanin lahad tanu Rabbanan. So one of the first cases we said was a shoteh, right? If a shoteh Kohen marries a shoteh Kohen marries a bat Yisrael, he doesn't puzzle her from eating truma, and if he doesn't allow her to eat truma, and if a shoteh Yisrael marries a bat Kohen, he doesn't puzzle her from eating truma. So shoteh ve'katan shenasu nashim ve'metu. So if you have a shoteh or a katan that they marry a woman and they die, so their marriage was not a real marriage. Therefore, neshoten peturot min chalitza u'min yibum. There's no yibum or chalitza in that case. If a shoteh marries someone and he dies, the brother doesn't have to do yibum or chalitza because that marriage was not a real marriage. It wasn't a halachic marriage. Okay. Then we got into cases of zunut. So ketzad haya Yisrael shebal bat kohen tochal b'truma yibra lo tochal. So we said that if Yisrael was together with a bat kohen, she could still eat truma, right? Bat kohen was together with Yisrael, not through marriage. She could still eat truma because it was just a bia. And he's kosher. Now, if she becomes pregnant, that's a different story. Then she cannot eat truma. So says the Gemara, kevan de'ibira lo tochal. Since once she became pregnant, she cannot eat truma. Lechu shema ibira. Why don't we assume that she's pregnant? We have other cases. The Gemara is going to say, Milo tanan mafrishinotan shlosha chodashim shema meubaroten. We have elsewhere that if we had a case earlier in the Masechet that if two men were mekadesh two women, and then they switched by accident. They went to the wrong room, whatever it is. They switched, and they had one bia with the other woman who's a ishadish.
Twins.
Yeah. So the Gemara said that we have to separate everybody for 3 months because maybe one of them became pregnant, and we want to make sure we know who the father is. So you see that from one bia of znut, we were worried that maybe she became pregnant. So over here also, why don't we say, whoa, she has to wait. She cannot eat truma. She has to wait for 3 months before she can eat truma. Maybe she's pregnant. Why? How come we only say no? If we know she's pregnant, then she cannot eat truma. Why don't we wait and assume for 3 months? So the Gemara says, Amar Rabba bar Avuna liyuchasin chasheshu litruma lo chasheshu. Rabba bar Avuna, he suggests that when it comes to yichus, to know if the child is a mamzer, so okay, then we're worried that she's pregnant. We have to be choshesh that she became pregnant from this bia, and we separate everybody because we're worried. For yuchasin, we want to make sure that we have the right yichus. But for truma, we're not choshesh such a thing that maybe she became pregnant. If we know she's pregnant, so then she can't eat truma. But if we don't know, we're not choshesh that she became pregnant from one bia. So the Gemara says v'atanya. Uli truma lo chasheshu. The Gemara says, what? You're telling me we're not worried by truma that we're not scared that something's gonna happen. We're not machmir by truma to make sure she doesn't eat. Vatanya rezikitech shah achad kodem lemitati. Let's say a man went to a woman and he gave her a get. He was a kohen who was married to a bat Yisrael. So he gives the get, and he says this get is going to be effective 1 hour before I die. That's what he says. Okay? So, asura le'echol b'truma miyad. She cannot eat truma because any moment could be 1 hour before he dies. So she cannot eat truma. So what do you see? We're choshesh, we're worried by truma also. We're very worried and we're very machmir. So also over here we should be worried, oh, maybe she's pregnant, and we should be machmir that she should not eat truma. If she's a bat kohen who had a zinut with Yisrael, she should not eat truma because maybe she's pregnant. So Ella Amar Rabba Rav Huna benisuin chashishu biznut lo chashishu. Rabbi Rav Huna says like this, that in a case where there are two people who are married that are having bia, okay, then we're choshesh, maybe she's pregnant. The case that we had before, these two people thought they were married, and they switched the wives, they went to the wrong wife, right? They went to the twins, whatever it is, they went to the wrong one, but they thought they were married. So their bia, they don't have a problem trying to get pregnant. So therefore we're choshesh, oh, maybe she became pregnant from that bia, so we have to separate everybody and make sure she didn't become pregnant before anybody could go back. But lo chashishu, biznut lo chashishu. But by znut, our case over here is you have a bat kohen, and she was together with a Yisrael. So we're not choshesh that she became pregnant because the bia was not a bia of marriage that they're trying to have a child. The bia was a bia of znut, and by znut generally they do things to make sure that she doesn't get pregnant, right? Rashi says she'll position herself in a way that she's not going to be able to get pregnant. So the Gemara says, "Uvenisuin mi chashishu." Now the Gemara questions the other way. It says, "Whoa, when they're married, we're worried that she becomes pregnant from one bia." Vatanya, bat kohen tovel v'ochelet ad arbaim. Bat kohen shenised liYisrael umet. Tovelet ve'ochelet b'truma le'erev. So you have a bat kohen who married Israel, and that Israel died. So she goes to the mikveh, and she could eat truma that night. Now, why don't we worry that she's pregnant? It's nisuin. She was married to the Israel, right? She
could go to the
we're not talking about. We're talking about tevila from bia. After bia, she has to have tevila before she eats truma. So her husband was niftar. She can.
Husband was niftar, and the night she go to tevila.
For tevila of eating truma.
What's the difference? The big crazy mikvah.
No, she's allowed. She just cannot be tovel. There's an isser tashmish for an avel. There's no isser of eating truma. Oh, you're saying like that? No, for what's it called? For tuma, she's allowed to go. So she's going for tumat bia, and the point is she's bat kohen who was married to Israel, and the husband was niftar, and she what's it called? She's eating truma that night. That's the point. So the Gemara is bothered. Over here they're married. We should be worried that she became pregnant from him, and she shouldn't be able to eat truma. So Amar Rav Chisda tovel v'ochel ad arba'im. Rav Chisda says no. You know what it's talking about? She can eat truma up to 40 days from the initial bia that they had. Di lo mi'abra, because if she's not pregnant, so then lo mi'abra, then she's not pregnant. Vi mi'abra, and if she is pregnant, ad arba'im maya ba'almahi. For the first 40 days after the bia, the fetus, the zera, is not formed into anything yet, and the Gemara says it's maya ba'alma. So he says either way she's allowed to eat, because let's say, right, we're talking about again a bat Yisrael who was married to it was the other way around. No, it was bat Yisrael who was married to a kohen, right? Was bat.
Bat kohen married to
Yeah. Sorry, bat kohen married to a Yisrael, and she. Right, that was the case.
Yeah, that's it. But when she hasn't passed away, she could have.
Right. She had to go back to have children. Right. So it was bat kohen married to a Yisrael, and the husband was niftar. Right. They got married. They had one bia. The husband was niftar. So the Gemara says, oh, we should assume maybe she's pregnant, and if she's pregnant, she cannot eat truma. So the Gemara said, oh, that which we say she's tovelet ve'ochelet is only for the first 40 days after that bia. Because if she's not pregnant, so then she's not pregnant. If she is pregnant, that's not a baby yet that will cause her to not eat truma. When we say that the ubar will be posel her from eating truma, that's talking about after 40 days, when something begins to be formed. But before that, the ubar is not going to be posel her from eating truma. So Amar le Abaye, so Abaye said, Ihachi ema seifa. Look at the seifa of the Braita. It says, Hukar ubara beme'eha tehem mikukelet lemafreya. It says, once she's noticeably pregnant, then she has to, she messed up all of the truma that she ate beforehand. That sounds like that if she ate truma beforehand, she has to pay the additional chomesh, and it sounds like she made a mistake. So it sounds like she's not supposed to eat truma from the beginning until after 3 months or whatever, until we know for sure she's not pregnant. So the Gemara says, no, mikulkelet ad arba'im. What it means is any truma that she ate going back up till 40 days. So basically what comes out is like this. After the case was Bat Kohen who married Israel, they had one bia, he was niftar, so she can go back to her father's house and have truma up till 40 days after the bia. If she has truma further than that, and it comes out that we find out that she's pregnant, whatever she had after 40 days, that she's responsible, that's considered like she ate truma when she wasn't allowed to, and she has to bring an additional chomesh for that truma that she ate. She has to pay an additional fifth to replace the value of the truma. Okay. Let's start the next Gemara. Very, very interesting case. So, Itmar. Haba al arusato bebet chamiv. So, we know that when someone is mekadesh a lady, he's not allowed to have bia with her until there's nisuin. There's still an isur bia. She's still living at her father's house. She just accepted kiddushin, but they're not allowed to have bia together. Now, let's say the guy did. Habal arusato bebet chamiv. He was in his father-in-law's house. He was with his arusa. So Rav Amar Vlad Mamzer. Rav says that child is a mamzer. Why? So the Gemara is going to explain, if Rav holds that, if she was mufkeret and she was opened herself to have znut with this guy that she's not supposed to be with, so who knows who could be the father? Shmuel Amar Vlad Shituki. Shmuel says no, the Vlad has the status of a Shituki, which is a notch down. It's not as, we don't assume as heavily that the child came from someone else. So Amar Rava says, Mistabre milta de Rav de daima me'alma. He says that Rav's halacha makes sense if she's daima me'alma, which means if she's suspected of being with other people. Avalo daima be'alma batra didesha dinanle. But if she's not suspected of being with anybody else, we're going to assume this guy's the father. Okay, so what was the case again? A guy gave a lady kiddushin, and he's supposed to be in his own house. They're not supposed to be together. They were together. She became pregnant. So Rav said this child is a mamzer. The Gemara is saying that's Rav's saying the child is a mamzer in a case where she's daima me'alma, where she's also suspected of being with other people. There are rumors that she's with other people also. That's why the child is a mamzer. But if that's not the case, we assume this guy is the father, and that's it. And Amar Rava Mina Aminala, and Rava says, you know where I'm coming from to say this? I have a proof from our Mishnah. Diktani, Yalda, Boker Tov. So Amar Rava Mina Aminala, Rava says, you know where I'm coming from? Diktani, Yalda, Tochal. Because we said if Bat Yisrael had znut with a kohen, okay, and she's pregnant, so she doesn't eat because the ubar cannot be ma'achil. But once she has the baby, so then tochel, she could eat truma. So now she had znut with a kohen. How do you know for sure that the kohen is the father? So says the Gemara, Hechidami, ilema dedaima ma'alma. If the case is that she's suspected of being with other people too, so yalda amai tochel. Why should she eat truma? In that case, she has a child, yeah, but who says for sure that the Kohen is the father of the child? Ela lav mine daima velo daima ma'alma. The case must be that she's suspected to be together with the Kohen. There are rumors that they're having some znut or some relationship, but she's not suspected of being with anybody else. Umahatam dilahai isura ulhai isura batra didesha dinanle. In that case, where she's asur to the Kohen and she's asur to everybody else, meaning she's not married to any of them, we assume that the Kohen is the father, because there were only rumors of her being with the Kohen. So in our case, where she's already engaged to one of the, she had kiddushin to one guy, and if the case is that she's only suspected of being with him and not to anybody else, of course we're going to assume he's the father. So the case where we're saying the child is a mamzer must be that she's suspected of being with other people, not necessarily only with this guy. So Amar le Abaye said to him, then Abaye said, maybe I could tell you that in a case where she's suspected of being with this guy, even though she's not suspected of being with anybody else, Amar Rav Vlad Mamzer, Rav says the child is still a mamzer, even when she's only suspected of being with this guy. My timer, why? From the fact that she is mafkir herself and she allows herself, she opens herself to have bia with this guy. So who says who else she's having bia with? So therefore, we could assume that anybody else, we don't have any right to assume that this guy is specifically the father. And umadnitin, and our Mishnah is shayush neim chavushim b'beit ha'Yisraelim. Our Mishnah that talks about a case of a bat kohen to a Yisrael. That case is talking about when they were both together in the jail together. They were both put in a cell together. So there's no option that that anyone else is the father. But in general, if there's an option that somebody else is the father, we don't assume that it would be him. Okay, so we'll stop here. B'ezras Hashem, continue tomorrow.